We're back. What's up?
Not much. Opening day, the day that we're recording this.
Hmm.
Um,
Are your Red
baseball.
Sox already winning or losing?
They lost their first game to the Orioles.
Mm,
By the time this comes out, hopefully they will have won the series.
okay.
But I don't know. They lost 10-9. Lost in, of course, in the ninth inning. It was a home game, but yeah, I'm not pleased.
Okay, there we go. As you say, the home opener and the opening day, I did see you. I noticed you don't have your Boston hat
Oh no, the boys had my helmet.
on. Okay.
I did wear my pullover to work.
Okay.
And I have the hats are put up. And Evan has one hat, but I think he lost it on a vacation. So
So now the world has a hat. Okay.
whatever house we stayed in Fayetteville while we were
Okay.
on vacation has that hat.
They have a hat. Fair
Yeah,
enough. But we're not talking about opening day baseball, although I'm sure Leroy could talk about it for hours,
at least minutes.
at least minutes. There we go. No, we are talking about
An end of an era,
pour,
almost probably.
maybe, yeah. Pour
Probably.
one out. Pour one out for E3. It's been canceled again.
Yeah,
Uh,
the last
E
in person was 2019.
2019, E3 2023 has been canceled after lots of reports of other video game companies pulling out and saying, "Hey, we're not going to be at the event for reason X, Y, and Z." Reed Pop, the group that was putting it on, sent out an
That
email.
Yep, teamed up with the ESA, sent an email out to members, and then they released on how I saw it was they released it on their social medias.
Hmm.
So when I texted you, it showed up in my feed that E3 was canceled, and I was like, "Oh,
Hmm.
that's new."
Hmm.
That's when I texted you.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, just overall thoughts, man. Are you sad? Are you like you knew this was coming, or like what are you feeling?
Uh, so I personally, I like E3. I know you through through working in the industry and learning more about video games. I know E3 is not the largest. I know it's the sixth largest gaming convention, if my number serves me, based on the article that I was reading. Um, they put it at six with Gamescom being the number one. So E3 fell behind Gamescom, the GDC conference, the Tokyo Game Show. Um, I think even Jeff Keighley's Summerfest might be a bigger event than E3 was or is.
Well, that's interesting. Like, how do you quantify that? Because it's not like Summerfest was a centralized location of a gathering of people, right? It was just kind of here's one thing, and we'll say it's part of Summerfest, and here's
Yeah.
another thing as part of Summerfest.
Like I said, I don't know what metric they were using. I don't know if it was developers, but I know through a conversation with you, Gamescom was number one, the one held in Germany.
Oh,
Gamescom
yeah,
was number one.
Cologne. Yeah.
Um, so that's a bucket list for me to cover Gamescom.
I,
Um,
I I would like to go to E3.
well, you need a time machine. You need a DeLorean.
It seems that way. Yeah.
You need a DeLorean or an old white dude who traffics in uranium, or is it plutonium? What fuels the DeLorean again? I forget. Either way,
I think it was uranium.
you're going to need some things because it looks like E3 is not happening, and it may not happen again. But I I am sad because I like for our industry, our nerd industry, to have all of the things. If you can have 37 award shows for Hollywood, you could have at least 10 conferences for gaming, in my opinion.
Oh, sorry, it was plutonium. You're right. Plutonium, not
It
uranium.
was one of them.
Plutonium.
I
Yeah.
knew it was one of the oniums or eums. I've never been to E3, but I know
Maybe it
just
was
through.
both of them. I'm looking up Google stuff. I don't know. Don't pay me attention. I don't know.
But I know E3 generated a lot of buzz in the industry because it was a supposedly a press only event. So it did generate a lot of news for us, for the news, for mainstream media. And I think that's why I liked it more so than some of the other ones because it seemed to be the big one, and it was the one. It was during the summer. We were out of school. Um, it seemed to hit at the right time. Um, I personally liked it, but I understand knowing more of being older and knowing more about the business of gaming, knowing more about the business of conventions. I'm not shocked. And then you throw the pandemic in there. I'm not shocked, but I am disappointed because I did like what it represented. And I like the idea of an independent place where you can showcase your wares. Reporters and journalists are there to ask questions, to get, on hand. And it's not this state of play Nintendo Direct where everything is perfect kind of thing, where you can kind of, get your first impressions and where you can't really do that at a Nintendo Direct because everything is so polished. Nintendo Directs are mass-produced commercials, but at least at E3, you could tell if a game was buggy. You could. There are things you could kind of find out that you might not have found out at a state of play. So from that standpoint, I am a little disappointed that it's not going to be there. But the writing was all on the wall, like you said. So I mean, your big three weren't going to be there. Then Ubisoft pulled out, and it's it's a sad day. That's all I'm going to say.
For me, I've always enjoyed E3. I've always thought of it like Christmas in the summer.
Yep.
It was just a time where everything. I really liked it because everything came together. The others always talking about the console wars of fanboys and all that. Even if it was a fanboy console war, at least Nintendo and Sony and eventually Microsoft would all say, "Hey, this time in June, we're all going to come together and share different stuff. We each have our own different day to show things. We're all
Hmm.
in one centralized event."
Yep.
And I don't know if you remember this, but I remember because I could probably, if I look hard enough, I could probably find the DVDs of when they would like do E3s. They would record the press conferences, and you could buy the DVDs.
Really.
Oh yeah,
Mm.
I bought at least one of them. I think this was before I worked at GameStop, but I remember I loved it so much just being able to watch that over and over again before I really had internet enough to kind of watch it streaming or whatever. And I just like the idea of, ooh, this is so cool. And when E3 first started, or not when it first started, but like in its earlier years, everybody was stepping up to the plate, showing off these crazy ideas and maybe some games that might not ever come out, but they had all these crazy ideas or pitches. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah, this is great. This is going to be awesome. And then sometimes you would hear as it went on and the internet became more prevalent and people could find more stuff, you would kind of hear leaks about stuff leading up to E3.
Yep.
And
This is going to be premiering at E3. This
right,
is going to be. You, you knew this person was going to be there at E3. You might not know what it was, but you knew that like something surrounded it. I agree with you. Yeah, I remember
yeah.
those days.
And then game companies would kind of counter program that and they would say, oh, so you know about this leak? Well, you're not going to know about this leak. So
Uh
there
huh.
would be times where
Yep.
stuff would probably be leaked intentionally. That way, other stuff would be still be a secret.
Yep.
And it was just kind of this whole. I loved the mind games and the subterfuge and all that stuff and the behind the scenes machinations of everything. I thought that was a very cool event, and I had always hoped to go to E3 one day. And maybe I don't remember exactly the timeline, but eventually they opened E3 up to the public where you could buy a ticket. That didn't go very well.
No, that was as I'm reading about these people's accounts about E3, and certain people were like it was supposed to be a press only event, and then some people were like, but it really wasn't because people and friends of friends and would be able to get in. And I'm reading different accounts. I just I don't I wonder if it could have, if certain events hadn't happened, would E3 still be a thing if they hadn't have made it open to the public, if or if they would have done a day that it was open to the public, like one day. In other words, you do. I don't want to say I don't want to use San Diego Comic Con as a, because San Diego does its own thing, but like the first 3 days of the event, Nintendo has one day, Microsoft has another day, Sony has another day, and then on the last day, the day is open to the public. You do like a developer's day or whatever, and then like the last day of the event after everything has been announced, then the floor is open to the public to see this stuff in real life, hands on. The consoles are there. I wonder if that would have made it more available or made it something that people would have tried to get to. But again, with everybody making their own thing, I wonder if this is just inevitable.
Well, I think the issue is even before the pandemic hit, Sony and Nintendo had already dipped.
Well, Nintendo dipped in what, 2011? That's when they started their Nintendo Direct.
I don't remember, but I mean, I just remember. I know it was before the pandemic. Like they dipped
Yeah,
before that happened,
yeah,
and a big thing for them was, and a big thing for everybody was, the ESA was charging too much money for your
your
booth
floor.
space.
Yeah, mhm.
Um,
That's
and,
something I'm reading too. That Summer Game Fest, Jeff Keighley undercut E3's prices, so that people were wondering. I remember we were talking about this. How was Jeff Keighley able to get certain people who were going to be at E3 to come to Summer or get them because he was charging less?
mhm.
So
and
that's
I also think a big thing with that is with Summer Games Fest. Maybe recently, but like when it first started, I feel like it was just trailers. Like there wasn't a physical thing, right? Like you didn't
yeah.
go anywhere. You just saw this presentation.
Hmm.
Presentation. So if you're just watching a presentation, you don't have to pay for a digital for a boot space because you're essentially just giving him a trailer to play.
Yes.
So I mean, it was so much cheaper that way. Um, and I wish they could have come to some agreement. Or I wish there was a way we could FOIA and figure out why are you charging all this money? Where does this money go?
Well, I'll be honest with you. ESA has a very nice website. If you go to it,
Hmm.
they are responsible with educating and coalescing certain things that I think if you go to the website and pull it up and show people, ESA's website is really nice. It highlights programs, gaming. It's kind of like the I'm trying to think of the company, uh, the lobbying arm, so to speak, for gaming. The
Hmm.
people who push against those those individuals who always are like, this ill or whatever is going on in the world that people try to blame gaming for.
Hmm.
You know, that's what ESA is up against. They're the ones helping you with, you know, hey, here's what these ratings mean. Here's what games are appropriate. Here's what's going on. You know, telling you, hey, accessibility is important. I think that's very important, and I I think if E3 had done more of that, and maybe it could still be here if it was more policy and spreading the good word of gaming,
Hmm.
maybe it could have survived. I don't know. But you raise an interesting point. Where did all that money go?
Yeah, I mean, because
I don't
the,
know.
the ESA is made up of gaming companies, right?
Yep. Hmm.
So it's weird that they wouldn't figure out a way to, like, because they're already on the inside. You feel like, oh, we can't charge people so much because we know how much it costs as a game publisher ourselves. I don't know, so weird
I mean,
stuff like that.
it would be, or maybe it was one of those things where, and because we're because we're not exactly the gaming journalists that some of these other people probably are, and we'll learn more things because as we're taping this, this is premiering on Saturday. As we're taping this, this news just dropped hours ago.
Hmm.
This news dropped around late afternoon. I
Hmm.
had been at work when I saw it. It was only up a couple of minutes when I texted you, and let me see when I texted you. Uh, it hadn't been because when Reed Pop texted it out, I texted you at 5:20.
Hmm.
It was up on Reed Pop's Facebook and Twitter page for 20 minutes. So that's when I saw it. So it definitely dropped around 5 o'clock.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. I'm quite sure your boy who works for Bloomberg now we'll probably have a nice story about this soon coming up.
Some people
Excuse
that I've really been following have been Kat Bailey and Rebecca Valentine at IGN.
me. Mhm.
They've been doing a lot of. They've been developing more long form stories for IGN in the past few months, maybe years. I don't know, but they have some really good articles about like the slow decline of this most recent E3 and whether or not it would come back. A big
Mhm.
thing they were talking about is one of the issues, in addition to COVID and everything else, is it seemed like the people who are putting this on this year, Repop, who are known for doing New York Comic Con
Star
and
Wars celebrations,
yeah, um,
PAX.
so that they have some experience, doing these type of events. But what they were reporting is that some of the companies felt like the communication wasn't good communication between Repop and the game companies, so they weren't really
Interesting.
sure how how well put together this actually was.
Well, I just for me, and again, not to belabor the point, I it it to me it's an end of an era because I don't know if you remember getting these every month. Like it's just one of those things that goes hand in hand. Like all of these Game Informer magazines, Halo Reach, that's like I remember, uh, or issue 200, you
Hmm.
know, it's just one of those things where I'm just like, or a game that probably will never get a sequel, but Bulletstorm. uh, I just it just signals more things coming to an end that reminds me of like when that I just enjoyed about gaming. Like you said, it was like Christmas in July, so to speak. But here's my question,
Hmm.
because I'm on the side of you need more, the more the merrier. Like I said, if you can have 37 award shows for actors and actresses, and I'm not saying that their award shows or their work is not valid, that but if you can have a Golden Globes and Oscars and Emmys and IFC, your your screenwriters award, all of these different award shows, why can't gaming have its trade shows, and the more the merrier? But also I feel like, in my opinion, the question is, do we need it? But I kind of feel like gaming needs all the help it can get, only because we're still fighting for legitimacy, even though Activision is worth $70 billion.
You keep saying that, but I disagree.
The reason why I said it is because when it comes to gaming in mainstream media, it's still not taken seriously. It's still not, because perfect example was E3 in any of your shows that you saw at your station. Now you're in the Charlotte market, I'm in the Columbia market. Was E3, the fact that this trade show was canceled, in any of your shows? Did you
Hmm.
see it on the wire anywhere?
I did not.
And that's why I say gaming is still treated not as, because perfect example, if CES was canceled, you would have had that in the shows.
I mean, no, but I see your point.
And
I wouldn't
and
have put that in the show, but
you
okay.
but I guess what I'm saying is I would have pushed for CES to be in the shows.
Yeah, I mean,
And
well, for me, I don't know if I would agree with that only because other gaming stores have been in the news before. Like I've definitely seen other Charlotte stations and our station talk about the fact of the Activision Microsoft merger deal. So I mean, I
understandable.
feel like there are certain game stories that have made it. I wonder if
Hold on, have they made it because you're a good station, or they made it because they broke in mainstream? Because I'm telling you right now, Activision has not been in any of our shows.
well, I mean, I can't talk for other stations, but I've seen
And
it
that's and that's
in other markets. So what I'm saying is, I've seen other people who have also reported on it. That isn't me.
and that's what I said. I think when it comes to gaming, it has to be monumentous, or it has to affect certain people. Perfect example, um, friend of the show, Andrea Mock, who is the one of the friends at Five Anchors, who has a son who plays Fortnite. When Fortnite went dark, when they did their update, That made it in the shows partially because when we were at the station doing News 19 Nerds, we put it in shows, and then she talked about it because it affected her because her son played Fortnite. So
Sure.
that made it in the shows, and I think stories like that breaks through the mainstream. But Epic versus Apple wasn't going to make it into shows unless we made that push. So that's why I say it hasn't made it on par with other national stories because we talk about all the time. There are national stories that don't make it in the shows. We talked
Hmm.
about that the other day when you were like, when I asked you, did this story make it into your newscast? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, it did make it in any of ours.
Hmm.
And you were like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah. So I think when you're having stories that are about gaming, even though they gaming is a big industry, a big business, I still don't think it reaches the level of, say, perfect example. Have you guys had Gwyneth Paltrow's ski trial in any of your shows?
No.
We have. And that's what I'm saying. It's certain stories, depending on who are the producers, who's in charge of making those news decisions. Gaming still hasn't cracked that. And I think that's why I said, for me, E3 is important because it keeps that message going.
Yeah. I mean, in that though, I would argue that, like you said, that's more on the producer than because the thing I would try to see is if AP has a story about E3 being canceled.
Um, Probably.
Because I would say if they do, then okay. Because then it's up to
Probably.
the producer to decide whether or not to put it in the
True.
show.
True. So yeah, but
Somebody else, I forgot about that Gwyneth Paltrow thing because somebody brought it up to me and was like, "Okay, yeah, I'm not putting this in the show."
I mean, I agree
They
with you.
wanted me to. I was like, "No, I don't
I
care."
agree with you. Like I like personally, I don't care. Like it's rich people. It's one rich person suing an ultra rich person.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you're at a ski resort with Gwyneth Paltrow, you have money.
Hmm.
I don't care. And I'm not saying that whatever injury happened. Now she was found, whatever you want to call it. She won her case.
Hmm.
She did not. I think they had. I think they had to pay her $1. But yeah, it was in one of our shows. So I think that's why I said for me E3 is important. So kind of like what like when we argue, not when we argue, but when we discuss and argue with other people and have this discussion, because some people are like they don't think GameStop's important, and I feel like GameStop is important.
Sure.
Um, I feel the same way. That's how I feel about E3. You may not like it, you may not have thought some of the things that they've done was probably the best, but I think it was good for the industry to still have it.
Do you have a favorite E3 memory?
No, because they all run together.
Okay, fair
It
enough.
like it really all runs together, and it's like I because I don't remember like you remember when a trailer came out
Hmm.
and you remember like it would come out at E3, but then you would watch it on the internet or you would watch it someplace. I don't remember if I saw that trailer there or
Hmm.
if I saw it like, and that's when I don't want to say yeah I have a favorite E3 memory. I know you probably do.
I have a few of them. I mean,
Run through your top three.
oh gosh, top three. Hmm.
Let me guess. Two of them are Nintendo.
Uh, I don't know. And I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I don't have an order for this,
Okay.
but I'll say a memory. Keanu Reeves on the Xbox stage for Microsoft when they showed off Johnny Silverhands for Cyberpunk, and
That
then
was
they
E3.
yeah that was E3
See, I
because
thought that
they
was a video game awards. See,
nope
that
because they
that's why I said it.
yeah they did a trailer, and then there's steam everywhere at
Yep,
Microsoft's theater.
I remember that.
The panel rises up, and you see somebody walking out. You're like, who's that?
Mhm. Yep,
Oh, oh, that's
yep.
Keanu Reeves.
And
And
he
then
says, and they said you're breathtaking. He
he said,
says, no,
"No, you're
you're
breathtaking."
breathtaking.
Yeah, that was a good moment.
That's a national
Um,
treasure right there, Johnny Silverhand, aka
Johnny said,
Keanu Reeves.
"Yeah." Another one, and this is I feel like a lot of people who have watched E3 for a while. It was before IGN became IGN, or they're about to be IGN. They had four people that worked there. I think it
Mhm.
was maybe when it was called IGN 64. But
Man,
it's
you
the
old.
it's the meme of the four guys. I can't remember all of them. It's Pierce Schneider, and I don't remember the other three. But it was
Mhm.
just four guys, they have like the meme face of being really excited because something got announced, and then they were really sad because something else got announced. And that big meme was around for a while. And I
Okay.
feel like it might have been a Legend of Zelda, and then like maybe a Pac-Man, the
Uh-huh.
four-player Pac-Man game, maybe. Chat, let me know in the comments if I'm wrong or whatever, or close to that. And then if I had to pick another one, if I had to pick another one, it was probably the first time they showed the gameplay for the 2018 God of War. When we first, it was for Sony's press conference. They probably had maybe 3 to 4 minutes of a musical or orchestra playing the music for the game. You didn't know what it was.
Hmm.
You hear like a voiceover, and you slowly realize, oh, that's Kratos. That's awesome. Um, and that was that was a cool moment. So I would say those three, just off the top of my head.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, so we've talked about our impressions of E3 going forward. In your opinion, will we see E3 again? In other words,
I think the
is
name
this
is
it?
too. I want to be optimistic and feel like it's too big to fail, but
I mean,
that's not the right phrase because it's failed like 3 times in a row now.
well,
But I
hold on. I don't want to say it's failed. I think they've run up against real world consequences that have definitely affected its business model. The last one they had was 2019. 2020 was the pandemic. A
mhm,
lot of things didn't happen in 2020. I mean, the NBA shut down.
mhm,
Um, I mean, let's perfect example. 2020, the University of South Carolina women's basketball team, the Gamecocks, probably were on track to at least be in the running. They were the number one team. They probably could have made a deep run in the tournament.
mhm,
Um, there's speculation that they could have won it all that year.
mhm.
Um, so that just knocked out. So E3 was up against some monumental things. 2021, I think it was digital.
Mhm.
2022 was canceled. And then people were asking, what about 2023? Now we know 2023 is canceled. So I feel like they've had a run of bad luck, real world consequences. And let's be honest, inflation probably did cause some companies to pause and say, is this cost effective for us to go to this thing?
Sure.
Especially when, because in their statement, they said interest has waned. And when your three the biggest game console makers have pulled out with Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft, everybody else is going to be like, so that's why I said, is there a way? Because correct me if I'm wrong, aren't all three of those game console makers on the board at the ESA?
No, just Nintendo.
Just Nintendo? Okay.
Mhm. At least
So,
according to what I just saw on their website.
okay, that's what I'm asking you. It is could this just be a blip? Could they rally and come back?
I would like to think so because, like we said, yeah, the big three weren't going to be there, but this isn't the first time that they had dealt with that. Like we said, Nintendo hasn't been there for a while. Sony hasn't been there for a while. I can't remember if Microsoft had been at the last one or not. Maybe they were, and then maybe this was the year when they finally pulled out. But I mean, they had dealt with that for a while. I think in a way that does suck, but you can still build around all the other second party developers or third party developers for your consoles that are doing stuff. Um, I, I I don't know what the strategy is, but we know people still like game conferences. Like we
Yes.
said, while E3 has been floundering, Jeff Keighley's events have been killing it.
I mean,
Um,
but
say what
Jeff.
you want to about the Game Awards, but I feel like they get better every year, and he tightens it up every year.
Well, I mean, I want to say he can only get better every year because that's what smart people do. But we've seen other people in the past not get better every year, not do things and not improve.
Right. But
So
even with that, like okay, so if you take that one out of the way, he also has not Summer Games Fest, but what's the other thing that's in August?
I have no idea. All I know, only thing I remember about
ONL One Night Live. I think it's like opening night live, which is in front of Gamescom.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, so I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I remember that. Yeah, where he shows
there
some advanced trailers. Yeah.
yeah, there are so many different events that people like to go to. So there's definitely an appetite for it. You raise your hand, I'll raise my hand as well. But there's an appetite for that thing. So it exists. It's just finding a way to make it work. And maybe it is charging cheaper prices to get people to come. Maybe it is offering some sort of discount or voucher to get people to show up. I don't know what it is, but I want to stay E3 comes back because it meant so much to so many people. But
I,
maybe we're the old dinosaurs and the younger people are like, I don't care.
well, here's the thing, and so I was reading a Polygon's article about Polygon's article from Michael McWhorter,
Hmm.
and one of the things he brought up, which I thought was very, hold on, is it Polygons?
Yeah, if
Uh,
it's Michael McWhorter, it's Polygon.
no, no, no. I was trying to see if somebody brought up a very good point. No, it wasn't this one. It was another
Okay.
article. I'm sorry, but they brought up a very good point that one of the things that really hurt E3 was in that it was that E3 had that a lot of because it was a press only, and then developers and video game makers were able, that whole sense of you got to meet face to face, you got to have that interaction with people. But the article that I was reading, I can't remember what it was, and I want to say it was PC Gamer, but I can't remember right now. The idea of Zoom, that we no longer have to do face to face. You can tell, like, the fact of remote working has allowed for these, you don't have to have these business dealings face to face anymore, and that really hurt because you no longer have to have be on the floor to
Hmm.
talk to, not necessarily a rival, but somebody you may want to do business with. Teleconferencing has really hurt, um, has really hurt things, conventions going forward. And I'd like to go back to, and maybe we were in, because I know, a lot of people are like, I don't like to speculate, but that's what we do here. We speculate.
Sure.
Um, Maybe going and enticing people to come back, as far as developers and as far as video game console makers, maybe the idea of getting them to come back is having people on the floor, open it up to fans, maybe making it a smaller event, maybe having one day of, hey, all three console makers will be here. We're going to make it cheaper. It's going to be 3 days: Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with Sunday being the last day. And that day is open to fans.
They've done
And,
something like that.
and what I'm saying is, I know they've done something like that, but maybe that's the way to bring it back. Maybe
Hmm.
that's the way of charging cheaper prices, saying, hey, you don't have to have a huge presence here, but have a smaller presence, have all your wares. Because to me, if you look at the reporting, Sony could have benefited from having E3. Their launch of the PSVR is not going well. Um, that is a very expensive hat,
Hmm.
because it is 550 for, and we've talked about this before. It's 550 for the VR, on top of spending $500 just to get the PlayStation, which
Hmm.
you could not get up until recently. I sent you a picture within the last month. The first time I have seen a PS5 in store, I
Hmm.
was at Walmart. That's the first time I've seen a PS5 in store, where I walked in, I saw a PS5, and I could buy it.
Hmm.
Um, I think having that hands-on, allowing people to try out the PSVR. I think it's, is it NPD who usually does the whole,
NPD, yeah.
and I think their name has changed to something else. But IGN reported that their recommendation is they need to slash prices. That thing just came out. They've only sold about 200,000 units of this thing.
And I
Um,
love it.
you love it because you want to get one for cheap.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying. What I'm saying is, maybe Sony could have benefited from going to E3, because as it stands right now, your state of play ain't working to push this thing. You need to be on the floor with actual customers and saying, "Hey, you need to buy this." But with inflation going the way it is, with Uh, we just had a scare with eggs being, $97 for a dozen, gas going up and down. Gas's prices are going up because the summer's about to hit. So we're going to switch to the summer blend. I think a group like Sony would benefit from an E3. Um, I think Nintendo would benefit from having playing Zelda Breath of the Wild Part 2.
I
Um,
don't know how Nintendo benefits from E3 anymore.
but see, personally, I feel like they would. I feel like they would benefit from, like, say, you know me, I have talked so much shit about Nintendo, but this is the year of Nintendo. You've got Super Mario World that opened up. You've got Super Mario Brothers the movie, and you've got the Breath of the Wild sequel dropping this year. This is Nintendo's year. 2023 is the year of Nintendo. I'm saying it. So to me, I feel like that would have been a good thing for them, and Microsoft can use all the help they can get. So
Yeah.
that's all.
Um,
And again, you like you said, maybe this is wishful thinking of an old man who still longs for magazines.
I mean, you can still get Game Informer, right?
Yeah, but it's not the same.
I was like, I think you can still get Game Informer from the store.
It's true. You can, but it's just not the same. Like it's just not. And maybe it's because again, I'm not a kid anymore.
Hmm.
But it's not the same. And maybe it's wishful thinking that it can come back. But I
So
personally I would like to see it come back.
yeah, for me, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to move forward because I wanted to come back. If it doesn't, okay. I wonder if Jeff Keighley fully takes over that role, and if he does, what does that
He's
look like?
he's positioning himself to.
Yeah, but I don't know if he wants the stress of having like a full 3 day physical in person event, whereas he can just have a digital thing where you play stuff,
Well,
um,
well,
or not where you play stuff, a digital thing where you see stuff.
here's the thing. He doesn't have to take over E3. I think by default he is because with E3 not happening, every all eyes move to Summer Game Fest, and with the big three having their own, Nintendo having Nintendo Direct, Sony having its state of play, which they're probably going to have another one coming up soon. Microsoft having whatever they have that's coming out because they pulled out of E3 and they're going to have their own thing this summer, which is centered around Starfield. Their big push for the year. Um, Jeff Keighley by default is looking around and he's like, I'm trying to remember what movie or what book I read where basically like all the top assassins or all the top spies, whatever, everybody killed each other,
Hmm.
and there's this one dude left alive. That's Jeff Keighley.
The only issue I have with Jeff's event is that it's so scattershot and just kind of everywhere, and he kind of puts the title on. If it happens somewhere in the summer, it's part of Summer Games Fest,
Mhm.
and I guess that's fine. But I like the idea of it being more concentrated over the course of like a week or so. But I feel like Summer Games Fest kind of goes from 3 or 4 weeks. Like, oh, here's one event. Okay, we'll call it Summer Games Fest, even though there's really nothing tying it to it. Um, I don't know.
Well,
That's more of
maybe.
a nitpicky thing than anything.
Well, here's the thing. Well, now that E3 is not happening this year, and we know he's still going to do Summer Game Fest, maybe this positions him in a place where he's able to say, "Hey, they're wounded. Let's move in," and you pair yourself. You get you get a sponsor, or you get somebody like a Target, or you get somebody like a Best Buy, and or you pair with GameStop. I don't know who, but you say, here are the games. Here's the things that gamers are interested in, and you say, boom, 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 boom. If you want this, here's the place where you can go get it. Here's a
Mhm.
physical store where you can go order it or go online and order it. It'll be here. It's up for pre-order. Yada yada yada. Maybe he does this thing where it is only digital, but he markets it as, yes, you saw this thing that's cool. Stay tuned for the Game Awards or stay tuned for Gamescom when I have my August thing. But if you want to if you want this thing, here's where you can go. And he does start to centralize because he smells blood in the water and he says, okay, they're weak, they're not doing it. Let's fill this gap. How do we do that? And it's not necessarily where he's like, hey, I don't want the headache of a on the floor meet and greet where I've got to deal with all of those things, where I've got to rent a space, I've got to charge, you know, and maybe it was scattered because he had to get what he could get when he could get them.
Sure.
But now the fact that E3 is not happening and it is March 31st, April
I
1st
mean, let's just
is
say April.
it's April 1st because so as we're taping this, it's March 31st. This will be dropped on April 1st. So you've got April 1st from now until June, July to solidify and get things done to say, okay, we are the go-to for the summer of these games if you want to see them outside of your big three.
Well, I think this year that's impossible. I think maybe next year. Like if it hasn't already happened, I
Yeah.
don't see it happening now just because one of the issues with E3 is that they couldn't plan stuff out. So if it hasn't already been announced, I don't see it being a thing now. I think it could be something next year.
Okay.
Um, and I think a big thing with that is too is some of these reports I'm seeing is that everything's kind of cyclical or things because game development is so long, we don't really see the fruits of something until 3 or 4 years down the road. So it's almost like even though the pandemic, even though we may be out of a pandemic and now an endemic, game developers still haven't figured out a way to consistently make those deadlines of this game's going to come out this time or whatever because we now have a pipeline in place. They're still trying to figure that out, I think. So I almost wonder if we had to wait 2 or 3 years before video game developers figure out, okay, this is the way we're going to develop games and we can consistently make these benchmarks in this new COVID world. And once that happens, then E3 can come back and be like, okay, these game developers can show off these demos now because we know what we can do. We can show off this vertical slice. We can show off this trailer, that type of thing.
Well, here's another thing too, and again, it goes back to your point with Jeff Keighley and maybe digital only, because we're in here, and this is we, and I talked about this before when we talked about movies. And follow me on this tangent; it's going to make sense. We talked about this when it came to the pandemic and how we as society handled the pandemic, the endemic. Um, that I was like, you can't bullshit me anymore about like you don't know how the world will respond to a scientist saying this. And like we talked about it in movies, like I want to see, because now we have seen how we have handled certain things, we know how society reacts. So now going forward in your whatever content that you create, whatever art you create, you need to adhere or at least recognize we now have a blueprint for how society will act given these set of circumstances. Now, with that being said, going forward, pandemic changed how conferences are held. Part of the E3 was held in downtown Los Angeles. Um, Not everybody's opinion, but a lot of people's opinion were that they did not like that it was a hassle to do this event in Los Angeles, whether it be downtown, whether it be traffic, whether it be the amount of money that it took to have this. So maybe this is an opportunity for them to reevaluate and say, recognizing how the pandemic and the endemic changed the business, changed how they handle things. Because you talked about Reed Pop. Reed Pop, their only job is to put on conventions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how well their conventions are because I've never been to one. So I don't know. And then throw in the pandemic. So I don't know what changes that they've made that maybe E3 wasn't willing to make those concessions or those changes. And maybe that was where part of but E3 has to acknowledge the world has changed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's part of going forward. You may not be able to have it in Los Angeles. Maybe you have it in Seattle. Maybe
Mhm.
you have it in San Diego. Maybe you have it. I don't know. What I'm saying is that real world things happen, and there are consequences of that. There are changes, and we have not seen it. And it seems as if they have not been able to change with the times. And because Gamescom happen last year?
Yeah, pretty sure. Let's see.
So if the world's largest video game conference was able to happen last year, how are you not able to have it? You see what I'm getting at?
Hmm.
And that's where I'm uh that's I guess what I'm asking. Where have they learned from what we can and can't do? Because I guess my question is, was it ambitious for them to think, oh yeah, we can do it in person again, we can do it in LA, and everybody will show up? And was it a sense of, oh, the world has changed and they didn't catch on to that? So
Man, I'm
that
looking at the events that Repop puts on: C2E2,
yep.
EGX, Emerald City Comic Con, Florida
Mhm.
SuperCon, GameIndustry.biz. Oh, that's not a thing. MCM Comic
That's a
Con,
website, isn't it?
probably New York Comic Con. Yeah, PAX East, PAX
Yeah.
Australia.
And I would tell you right now, you go back to you said PAX East.
Hmm.
PAX East, I've heard, is very well done, and New York Comic Con. New York Comic Con is slowly becoming the destination from a comic standpoint, what San Diego Comic Con has not been, which is very friendly to the comic community.
Right.
Whereas San Diego Comic Con has been a
It's
multitude,
just a pop
it's,
culture now.
it's just everything.
Yeah.
Whereas New York City Comic Con is, if you love comics and you want to meet comic creators, comic artists, writers, inkers, letters, whatever the case may be, vendors, New York Comic Con is the place to go. So Repop, from all of what I've heard, know what they're doing,
Hmm.
and I look forward to all the information that comes out of Repop's New York Comic Con. Now, this week, as we talk about this, MegaCon is going on right now in
Okay.
Orlando.
Okay.
So
Didn't you go to MegaCon one year?
I went to MegaCon 2 years ago. Yeah, it was
Okay.
my first time going. It's in the middle of pandemic. It's in Florida, where Florida was like, "Man, fuck that virus," and I was like, "Whoa, that virus may take that personally, sir."
Hmm.
But I did go, wore masks, and they were very, very much adhering to the CDC protocols, wearing masks, kicking people out who are not wearing masks. It was a nice show. A little toned down from what I've told it usually is, because they have a huge floor where, like, one side of it is just nothing but celebrities, stars. Um, they had the whole cast of Full House there, um, like in one side, and that line was just out the ass. Um, so yeah, and this was before Bob Saget passed.
Mm.
So, but yeah, it was just one of those things where I think Reed Pop knows what it's doing. So I wonder if this is on E3 to reassess and analyze where they went wrong, and if they're going to be a thing anymore, they have to adjust.
Indeed. You got any closing thoughts, parting thoughts? I feel like we kind of covered it all.
Um, I don't know, like and this I open this up to the floor. For anybody who is going to a convention, what do you want to see E3 turn into? I've never been. I always, like, you have a bucket list. Thanks to you, I actually was able to go to San Diego Comic Con. I never
Hmm.
thought I'd be able to go. It was like on my bucket list, but I never did all of the things that it took to go, because if you've been on this channel, I deal with anxiety. All of those people, not gonna lie, I freak out a little bit.
How you
So
gonna deal with that this year?
I'll be on medication by then. Um,
Okay.
I was on medication that time last time, but I also didn't take breaks. That was my
Yeah,
biggest
you
problem. I
you
had
was trying to just do it all.
because and here's the
I
thing,
was trying to
and
tell you, hey man, take a break.
no,
I definitely told you, hey,
you
don't
told me
go.
to take
Don't.
a break after I had my attack.
I did not.
Yeah, because it was because here's the thing, we didn't have that conversation of you can't do everything until after I went that day that you didn't go. And then I came back and then I was on the bus with someone who worked and she was like, I've been doing this 7 years. And she's like, you can't do everything. She's like, you have to pick certain things that you want to go to and then you have to zero in. And then the other stuff, you get,
It's a
if it
bonus.
happens, it happens. Yeah. And so that really helped. But because I'd never been before and I was like, I may never get this opportunity again, I was like, I've got to gorge myself on everything. And I didn't realize that, okay, you got to pick and choose.
Hmm.
Um, with that being said, I'd like to know from people who go to conventions who love video games, what would they like to see from E3? Do you want to see it just be digital and you just get, goodies? Or do you want it to be in person to where eventually you could go to it? Is it like a goal? Because, like you said, you've always wanted to go to E3. You've hit your goals of going to San Diego. I think this year would be what, your seventh year, 8th year,
Gosh, who knows?
8th time going.
It's been
You
it's
know,
been a good little
yeah,
chunk.
like you've been a lot. So like, what would the community like for it to be? Because personally, I think we need it.
Hmm.
I think to me, E3 is one of the things that I think we need, and I understand all of the logistics behind it. It has to change. It may not be what it was, but I would like to see it keep going. But it's going to take input from fans to say we want this because interest was waning, and that's why they didn't have it. What about you?
For me, I just want to whatever it takes, and I don't know what it is, but whatever it takes just to get everybody back in one location where I can just watch everything at once. That's what I would
Mhm.
really like. And I almost want to say, let's get under the dome like DC style and their dome event where, as wild as it was kind of they had almost little silos. Hey, here's going to
Mhm.
be the TV brand. Here's going to be the movie brand. Here's our comic stuff, and you could go online and see different things, and you could watch all the streaming stuff, and you would know when stuff would come up. I kind of like that idea. So maybe it's a combination of doing that
I didn't
and
think about that. It's a good idea.
some brand of a digital hybrid with a physical hybrid, and they put
Mhm.
that together. That would be awesome.
Would it be pre-produced? Would it be live? How would you handle that? Because I think that was to me one of the things that E3 was good and bad at. It was good that it was live. It was bad because certain things wouldn't work, but it was real world.
I think that does kind of give you some of the charm of yo, if your demo does work, okay, you guys are really polished because this is live,
Mhm.
and if it messes up, okay. Because and here's the thing, even if it messes up, it's not the end of the world because again, it's a demo.
Yeah.
It's not like for the most part. Usually, if something is shown at E3, and chat, let me know if I'm wrong, but usually if something is shown at E3, it is not coming out like the
Tomorrow.
following day, right?
Yeah.
They're usually showing you a vertical slice. They're showing you something, so they have time to work on stuff,
Yeah.
and I like that. I think that's cool. I like some of the times when people would try to play something and the controller didn't work because at least you know, oh, they actually are playing this.
Yeah.
It's not just tape, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Because I almost go back to we never got to see any public demonstrations for Cyberpunk.
Nope.
All the press saw it behind the scenes and other people were playing like, oh, this game was great. And like,
Mhm.
well, sure, that 1 hour that they polished was great.
Yeah.
You kind of wonder what
Because
would happen,
we know what happened when the title was launched.
right? You kind of wonder what would happen if it had been on a public scale and they tried to play it. Who knows?
And see that and I mm, that's what I think E3 was good for. The idea that you can't just show me a pre-made trailer or pre-made video game demo presentation. There were people who were playing it who were able to give their first impressions. You couldn't get away with that kind of stuff. And I think with E3 going away and you having developers and video game companies being able to just show you the pretty pictures and the pretty videos, they're able to get away with some of this stuff. Would if we had an E3, would we have gotten a cyberpunk the way we got it?
Oh, well, I mean, you mean if they showed it E3? Because I mean,
Hmm.
it. Yeah, Who
and
knows?
and that's the journalism side of me. I guess I want other people to weigh in to give their opinions and their impressions of what they want. And what was your favorite moment for E3? Because I forgot about the Keanu Reeves thing. That was amazing. I remember that. We watched it live. That was cool.
Hmm.
Um, Speaking of Keanu Reeves, go see John Wick 4. And also, if you like John Wick 4, go watch our review.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
That'll do it for us, y'all. We appreciate y'all watching this tape version. We couldn't do it live because I'm at this moment. I'm probably watching WrestleMania,
Yep.
having a
It's
good
two
time.
days.
Yeah,
Michael, in
2 days of
4 days.
WrestleMania, so I'm
Yeah, I didn't know
excited.
that. Yeah.
Hmm. That'll
What
do it
got
for
you through the
us.
week? What
Oh
got you
yeah,
through
what
the
got me
week?
through the week? Let's see. Um, what am I playing right now? Oh, I'm still playing Hi-Fi Rush. I beat the game, but now I'm enjoying it so much that I'm kind of going back and getting high scores and doing some of the secret content. Doing that a
What
lot.
What was your impression of Diablo 4? Is that a buy first day?
No, 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 no,
Really?
no, no, no.
Oh, okay.
I enjoy it, but I am not the person. This is the first Diablo game I ever played. I thought it was fun, but it's
Mm,
not one that I need to spend $60 on. Not for me.
70.
Okay, yeah. In that case, even more $70 is not
70.
what I need to spend $70 on. I could wait till it goes on
Okay.
sale.
All right.
Um, I enjoyed it, but yeah, not day one for me.
Okay. Um, for me this week, American Auto and Severance. I've been watching that, taking my time with it, digesting the episodes, and realizing, wow, this is really messed up. And
Hmm.
still playing Cyberpunk. Got back into it after I took some time off, and man, I just really enjoy that game. I really do. Like just doing all the gigs and stuff, and just driving around, shooting people with different weapons, and using my tech skills.
Hmm.
Um, I'm just really enjoying it. So yeah,
Cool. That'll do it for us, folks, for this week. We might be back the following week
hopefully,
live.
hopefully. I mean,
I'm on
we
call that week, but I still think I could probably do something. And then the following week is at Soda City
nah. Soda City's in August.
or not Soda City. What's the other one? SC
SC
Comic Con.
SC Comic Con is the 15th. So
Yeah, so the
this
week after.
weekend, yeah, the week after, yeah.
Okay, so
We'll
see,
see. We might may not do one that weekend, or who knows? Maybe we'll do it in Greenville.
big plans. If you
Who
want to help
knows?
us make that happen, like, comment,
Woo!
subscribe to get these numbers up so we can get funds to make that happen. So we don't make it a shit show.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I mean,
folks,
we will make it a shit show. No matter how much money we got, how many fans we got. Trust that we will try to do. We will try to make this perfect, polish, but it will be a shit show.
there we go. On that, folks, we out. Peace.
Deuces.